They called it a strategic restructure, but we both knew what it was. I'd been with Clearwell Systems for over 2 decades, walking those factory floors before half the current team even knew how to spell pressure valve. My name's Marissa Quinn. I'm 58, and until last Monday, I was the lead technical supervisor at a manufacturing plant in St. Louis that produced industrial-grade filtration systems, safety protocols, machine calibration manuals, lockout-tagout guides. They were mine. I wrote them, tested them, rewrote them. I knew which machines would squeal on cold mornings and which ones liked to jam if someone didn't preheat the resin chamber. But none of that mattered when Craig Dalton, the shiny new 36-year-old CEO with a 6-figure haircut and a 3-slide vision deck, decided the company needed fresh energy. I knew the second I got the calendar invite titled Quick Sync that it wasn't going to be quick, and it definitely wasn't about syncing. I walked into the room to find Craig and a stiff-looking HR rep with a branded folder already on the table. Craig didn't even pretend to warm up. "We're reimagining our operational model, Marissa. Your role no longer fits the direction we're moving. We need leaders who can adapt quickly to new technologies and communicate with a younger, digitally fluent workforce." Translation? I cost too much and I wasn't posting motivational quotes on Slack. I nodded. Just nodded. Not because I agreed, but because I already knew what I was going to do next. I didn't need to argue. I didn't need a dramatic exit. I picked up the folder, thanked them both, and went back to my office. As I packed my things, I slipped a few things into my personal files. Draft protocols I'd written, photos of faulty parts I'd flagged over the years, and my annotated maintenance map of the facility. Still the only complete one in circulation. No one stopped me. They thought I was just another outdated part being shelved. But what they didn't realize is that I wasn't leaving with bitterness. I was leaving with everything they no longer valued but still desperately needed. And when the first thing went wrong, and it would, they'd remember exactly who they pushed out. His name was Jordan Grant, 29 years old, freshly minted MBA, hair always perfect, shoes too clean for someone supposedly overseeing a factory floor. He was brought in as my replacement at Clearwell Systems, and let me tell you, the man looked more at home in a TED Talk than next to a pressure calibrator. Word trickled back to me before I even finished unpacking the last box at home. Jordan had started his first week by announcing efficiency reform. What that meant, apparently, was slashing the daily equipment checks I'd fought for years to implement. Low-value routines, he reportedly said in a team meeting. He also couldn't justify the labor hours for thermal sensor recalibrations, something we used to do every 72 hours like clockwork. The guy actually asked someone why we had 3 different lockout steps for high-pressure zones. "Can't we streamline this? Seems paranoid," was his exact quote, I'm told. It took less than a month. At first, it was little things. A sensor that failed to register a pressure spike. A flow meter on line 3 that misread by a margin. Tiny, but not trivial when you're pushing 400 gallons of high-temp fluid per minute. Then came the air compressor issue. Dropped pressure mid-shift, nearly shut down production. My phone started buzzing, first from Diego, one of the maintenance leads. "Marissa, sorry to bother you, but line 2's acting up. That alert threshold you told us to watch for, it's triggering now." I gave him a few steps to troubleshoot. Then Alicia, from inspection, messaged me. Management pulled the daily checklist. Just told us to observe visually unless something looks obviously broken. And then, the message that stopped me in my tracks. "You're not here anymore, but we still need you." That one came from Kira, a newer tech I trained, just last year. I stared at the message for a long minute before replying, "I'm still here, just not there." I'd warned them this would happen, not to gloat, not because I was bitter, but because systems built on shortcuts are time bombs. And Jordan, bless his spreadsheets, didn't realize you can't data analyze your way around decades of lived experience. He saw procedures as checkboxes, not as the quiet wall that stood between routine and catastrophe. I started keeping notes, not because I wanted to sabotage him, but because I knew this wasn't going to stop at leaks and lagging diagnostics. And when something finally cracked wide open, and it would, I wanted a record of exactly how we got there. Step by short-sighted step. It happened on a Friday. You always remember the day when something awful happens, even when you're not there to see it with your own eyes. The text came in first, just 3 words from Diego. It finally happened. My heart dropped before I could even finish reading. 20 minutes later, Alicia called, her voice tight with rage and fear. Caden's in the hospital. The press on line 4 malfunctioned, again, and this time, there was no safety pin installed. The entire side rail collapsed inward, crushed his hand. They're saying he might lose fingers, maybe more. Caden was new, barely 3 months on the job, always the first to clock in and the last to leave, still trying to prove himself. I remembered showing him the proper sequence on that very press during his onboarding. Back then, the chalk guards were triple locked, the sensor alarms still functional. I was silent on the phone. Alicia took that as a green light to continue. They took him to St. John's. While he was still hooked up to an IV, Craig sent HR to his bedside. I'm not joking. They tried to get him to sign an incident report taking full responsibility. Said it was operator error. Kid was still high off morphine. My stomach turned, not just at the cruelty, but the predictability. I hung up and went for a walk around the block, trying to cool the fire that was building in my chest. It didn't work. When I got back home, I found the email. No subject line. Just one PDF attachment and a single sentence. You need to see this. It was from an anonymous account. But the file, it was real. A scanned internal memo dated 2 weeks before the accident, signed by Jordan himself, CC'd to Craig. The EDAR subject, Q3 maintenance budget reprioritization. The third line made me sit down. Recommend postponing repair of line 4 safety mechanisms, non-critical and cost-prohibitive in current quarter. Reevaluate Q4. Non-critical. My hands shook as I reread that phrase. I knew that press. I knew how many lives it could ruin, in less than a second. And they chose to ignore it, for the sake of hitting a number in a spreadsheet. I forwarded the file to my private cloud, then texted Alicia, "Tell Diego, we move tonight." The next morning, I called in a favor with someone I hadn't spoken to in years, Laurel Marsh, an investigative reporter with the St. Louis Ledger. "I have a whistleblower story for you," I said, "but it's not about revenge. It's about a 22-year-old kid who might never use his hand again, because some MBA thought cutting costs was worth gambling with human lives." Laurel didn't hesitate. "Send everything. And Marissa, we're going to make sure they can't hide this." I didn't sleep that night, not because I was afraid, but because I knew Clearwell had just crossed a line. And this time, they wouldn't be able to walk it back. I didn't march back into Clearwell waving papers or shouting down hallways. That's not how you fight people who wear tailored suits and hide behind corporate buzzwords. You don't scream. You listen. You remember. And then you move in the quiet. I started with the people who still believed in doing things the right way. Diego from the hydraulic line, Lena from inventory, Eric from systems, folks who'd been there just as long. As I had, maybe longer. They didn't need convincing. They'd seen the same slow unraveling I had, and they were tired of biting their tongues. Every one of them still had access. Lena sent me pictures of mislabeled pressure valves stored near the heat compression units, one spark away from a lawsuit. Eric pulled print logs showing maintenance entries were being deleted or rewritten. And Diego? He walked the floor every night, documenting anomalies and near misses with time-stamped videos. Some of those videos would make your blood run cold. They all fed into the drive we called the Lantern, a single folder, encrypted and updated hourly, accessible only to 5 people. I kept it clean. Facts only. No emotions. Just dates, images, signatures, scanned memos. Proof that Clearwell Systems wasn't just broken. It was dangerous. Then, I contacted the Missouri Division of Labor Standards anonymously. I didn't need to give them a name. The files spoke for themselves. I asked one thing. Don't delay. You'll want to get there before something worse happens. But the most strategic move came over coffee, not a keyboard. I met with Roland Spence, Chief Systems Director at Orion Energy, the single largest buyer of Clearwell's industrial units. He'd known me for years. We used to joke that I'd personally inspected more valves for Orion than some engineers ever saw in textbooks. I'm not here to sell you anything, I told him. I'm here because your newest shipment has 4 units with bypass sensors that failed inspection, except those inspections were never logged. Roland stared at me, stone-faced. Are you absolutely sure? I built the protocol those sensors are supposed to trigger, and I have photos showing they were bypassed manually. He didn't speak for a while, just leaned back in his chair and exhaled. Thank you for coming to me first. That same night, I sent one text to Jordan Grant. You still have time to do the right thing, Jordan. If there's anything left of your conscience, now's when you find it, because the storm's already rolling in. MQ, I didn't expect a reply. And for hours, none came. But at 1:43 a.m., my phone lit up. What do you want from me? I stared at that message longer than I should have, heart steady, breath calm. Because for the first time since the accident, I knew. He was scared. Good. Let him be. Now, maybe he'd finally listen. The explosion happened on a Tuesday morning, 8:17 a.m. to be exact. I was pouring my second cup of coffee when my phone started lighting up like a Christmas tree. Center press exploded. Chemical leak. Whole bay evacuated. It's bad, Riss. Real bad. The central hydraulic press, the one I had flagged 3 separate times before I left, had finally given up. A cracked seal failed under pressure, spewing coolant and industrial-grade polymer all over Zone C. Nobody got hurt, thank God. But for the first time in 20 years, Clearwell Systems had to issue an emergency plant-wide shutdown. That doesn't happen unless something's gone very, very wrong. By noon, the headlines hit local business networks. Incident at Clearwell Systems causes chemical spill, halts production. And by 2 p.m., I got the call. Craig Dalton. His voice on the other end was tight, forced calm, like someone trying not to sound like they're bleeding out. Marissa, we need help. The press is down, the system's compromised, and we're flying blind. I let that silence stretch. Let him hear the echo of what he'd done, what he'd undone. Why are you calling me, Craig? I finally asked, slow and deliberate. Because you're the only one who knows how to fix this. I didn't smile, but I did close my laptop and reach for my notebook. I'll come in under 3 conditions, I said. Name them. 1. I bring in my own team. Lena, Eric, Diego, no negotiations. 2. I have full, unrestricted authority over all technical operations. No middle management, no interference. And 3. I get full access to 6 months' worth of internal maintenance logs, safety reviews, purchase orders, and staffing changes. The silence on his end this time wasn't relief. It was resignation. Agreed, he said eventually. We need this stabilized. I walked through the Clearwell gate 7:15 the next morning. People stopped what they were doing. Some nodded. Some looked ashamed. Others just looked relieved. Jordan stood by the control panel with a clipboard he clearly didn't understand. You really came back, he said. I'm not here to be a hero, I replied, brushing past him. I'm here to clean up a mess that didn't have to happen. The moment I stepped into Zone C, I saw it all. The shortcut wiring, the patched valves, The missing emergency release fail-safes. Jordan and Craig hadn't just cut corners. They'd taken a chainsaw to the foundation. We suited up, ran diagnostics, isolated the systems, and got to work. Within hours, my team was buzzing, cleaning, rebalancing pressure systems, realigning fail-safes. They still remembered how to do it, because we'd built it right the first time. That night, I stayed late, reviewing the maintenance logs from the last 6 months. Just like I suspected, falsified records, missing signatures, critical delay orders marked low risk. I didn't say I told you so. I just circled every lie in red ink and kept going. By Thursday afternoon, the hydraulic press was operational again. We'd replaced the cracked manifold, flushed the contaminated lines, and rebuilt the safety enclosure from scratch. But I wasn't done just because the machine was fixed. While my crew handled the repairs, I'd spent my nights finalizing a dossier, over 60 pages of falsified logs, deferred maintenance orders, internal memos marked budget holds, revisit, Q4, and side-by-side comparisons of the fake safety reports Jordan had submitted to the board. I sent the package out at midnight, one copy to the Missouri Department of Labor, one to Orion Energy's Compliance Division, and one, neatly bound and bullet-pointed, to Clearwell's Board of Directors. By Friday, the cracks weren't just in the machines anymore, they were in the company's foundation. At 10:03 a.m., I got a call from Helen Tran, Orion's lead engineer. "Marissa, we're halting all orders from Clearwell until further notice. What you sent us, it's unacceptable. We flagged every pressure unit they delivered this quarter for reinspection." She didn't sound angry. She sounded betrayed. 2 hours later, state inspectors rolled up unannounced. I recognized one of them, Denise Mercer, hadn't seen her since the last annual audit. She gave me a knowing nod as she stepped onto the floor. "We've received serious allegations of negligence," she said to Craig, who looked like he'd aged 5 years in 2 days. "We'll need full access to all records. Immediate." By 4 p.m., Craig Dalton was escorted out of the building by 2 HR reps. No farewell, no press release, just a box of things and a face full of panic. Jordan didn't fare much better. He was quietly reassigned to a non-operational role, pending review, which is corporate for, "You're on ice until we figure out how to make you disappear." The board scheduled an emergency meeting that same night. I was invited. Not asked. Invited. They offered me the newly created role of Director of Technical Operations. Full-time, full salary. Corner office, a team, budgetary control. I declined. "You don't need a full-time savior," I told them. "You need a system that doesn't collapse the moment one person leaves." What I offered instead was simple. I'd consult 3 days, a week. I'd rebuild the safety framework, retrain every supervisor, and modernize the diagnostic protocols without gutting the human side of operations. "And one more thing," I added, standing as I slid the proposal across the table. "I pick the team. No execs looking for shortcuts. No interns managing machinery they've never touched." The room went quiet. Then, one by one, heads nodded. I walked out of that meeting not as an employee, but as a force of accountability. Marissa Quinn wasn't back to punch a clock. She was back to make sure no one else ever got hurt because someone wanted to look good in a quarterly report. I didn't take an office, didn't need a nameplate or a leather chair. The floor was my space, always had been. My first day back as a technical advisor, I walked the full length of the plant, clipboard in hand, steel-toed boots echoing against concrete. There wasn't a sound I didn't recognize. But what struck me most weren't the machines. It was the people. Alice, who used to flinch every time a supervisor walked by, looked up from her station and smiled. Diego tipped his hard hat. Even Caden, arm still in a sling, made eye contact for the first time in weeks. Not because I was in charge, but because I had their backs. Over the next few weeks, we didn't just fix machines. We rebuilt trust. reinstated the feedback board in the break room, where any crew member could post suggestions or concerns anonymously. I held safety huddles every Monday morning, and I made sure Jordan, now in a newly minted compliance training role, was present at every single one. We reviewed every policy Craig had torn apart and rebuilt it together: engineers, techs, shift, leads, even HR. The new maintenance schedule wasn't mine, it was ours, built through field tests, input, and common sense. I fought to keep all the old crew, even the ones who'd been demoted or sidelined under the new regime. And I made sure the quiet voices got heard. At the reform announcement, they asked me to speak. I hate speeches, but I stepped up. "Let's be clear," I said, looking across the faces I'd known for 2 decades. "Customers don't choose us because we have the best-looking charts or fastest turnaround. They choose us because they trust the people behind the product. And people only trust what's built safely, by those who know what they're doing and are heard when something's wrong." The room was still for a beat. Then came the applause, not loud, not showy, but steady. Real. Like a heartbeat coming back. That afternoon, as I walked the floor again, no clipboard this time, every single person I passed looked up. Some gave me a nod. Some said, "Morning, Ms. Quinn." But the best were the ones who just smiled. I wasn't their boss. I didn't need to be. I was their compass. The one who showed up when everything broke. The one they called when safety wasn't just a checklist, but a matter of someone going home alive. And as I stepped outside into the Missouri sun, I realized something. I didn't win. We did. If you found this story as powerful as we did, don't forget to like, subscribe, and share. Sometimes the quietest people in the room are the ones who hold everything together.